Welcome to Nerd Side Champs. This is our second week of coverage on Skeleton Crew. And, well, we don't have any special guests to start today. We might have some very special guests dropping in, though. You never can tell on Nerd Side Champs who will or won't be there.
What's life without whimsy, people? What's life without whimsy? It's crazy.
Yeah, but you do have the OG Nerd Champs. We are both here in effect. You have Dan and Tim subscribe to at Nerd Champs. Let's go ahead off the top and see what we got for our first comment. Barry Allen is slower episode this week. Still a good overall story. So what was your key takeaway? It kind of sets us up this week. What did you feel about the episode that we got?
I think it was. I mean, that pretty much nails it down. It's not as action and swashbuckling and all that kind of stuff as what we had seen in the first week with the first couple episodes. I did think it was kind of interesting doing the escape and doing all that kind of stuff, and then there was like the little transport thing where they were kind of shooting at them as they were leaving. But other than that, there really was not a lot. There was not a lot that was actually, action. It was just pretty much that kind of stuff. So I think overall, I think they did a good job. The story moved forward, and actually kind of what they had done with this episode is kind of what we had talked about, how they kind of had success in The Mandalorian by kind of compartmentalizing it almost like a video game plot. Like, go to this place, meet this person, find this thing, and that's exactly what they did. And so those kind of plots work really well in the vein of a Star Wars universe in a series. And so I like that Disney is doing that. It kind of keeps the audience engaged even when there's not a ton of action. But yeah, there was not a ton of action in this particular episode.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have a mystery as a huge part of your plot, you're going to have episodes. You're going to have periods. Like if it was a movie, you wouldn't notice as much. But when it's a show, it takes up a whole episode. You're going to have 20, 30-minute sections where you're going to get the exposition, where you're going to talk and explain what the mystery is and then unlock the mystery at the same time. So a lot of that happened. We did have the high stakes hand-to-hand combat of Jude Law and the Owl Woman, Tim.
Yeah, of course. That was, and she wasn't really just an owl. She was like an owl badger cyborg combination. It was some weird thing. We'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
And they could have absolutely chosen a really, really interesting name for her, but they just went with Kim. Okay, like whatever works. So there you go.
I think it's spelled really weird, if that helps. It's pronounced Kim, but it's spelled with some Y's and apostrophes. If you saw it on paper, you wouldn't come up with Kim. So
gotcha.
Definitely more CGI this week versus practical.
I did not care for Kim as a CGI character. I will say that. And I think that it almost reminded me of in Force Awakens, Maz and Force Awakens, when you've got this very integral character with a very clouded past that you're introduced to, and then they kind of hide her until the reveal, and then you're just like, that's really all they could come up with was like this cartoonish almost. It really is disappointing because this is Disney, and we're talking about one of the foremost innovators in animation, and I've seen them do very, very flawlessly executed animation in Star Wars. I mean, Rogue One it comes to mind, the Peter Cushing that nobody really knew was animation, unless you knew that Peter Cushing was dead, which most of us did, but the millennials didn't know that. And so I do feel like a lot of us that have seen them do it are just asking why they can't do it consistently, and that's kind of the problem that I have with it. But
I don't think they really dropped the ball so much in character design, or concept. It's just I don't know where Disney lost the ball on this, but somewhere within the last 10 years, 12, I don't know, but Disney took a massive step backwards in CGI. You
Yeah,
know?
and I think it's deadlines and trying to meet all these deadlines for
Yeah.
these Rust projects. I think that's part of it. But I agree with you. I think they took a massive step backwards. I just don't think there's the dedication to making it as flawless. And I think a lot of it is directing and camera work and lighting. A lot of that stuff really kind of covers up.
Yeah.
Someone when Spielberg did it in Jurassic Park, that was flawless. That's how you do
Right.
it. You do it with the lighting and make it so that people. And in Rogue One, that's kind of what made it with Peter Cushing. That's what made it work was the lighting, and a lot of it was in the reflections and all that kind of stuff in the glass. There really wasn't as much to kind of give the tell that that's actually not him until you get real close. So I think that they just haven't really gone that direction on these characters very well with Disney. I think that
Yeah.
they need to re-examine that because they kind of have taken a step back. And we were giving them major bravos last week for doing practical. This is something you could have done a puppet
Yeah.
for. You could have done a puppet for close-up scenes with this character, and it would have
Yeah.
worked really well. So I don't
Yeah.
really understand why they didn't do that.
Because when she takes off flying,
Yeah.
then they have their little flight, you don't see her face.
Yeah.
And so that could have been CG because that CG is fairly convincing because it doesn't have to move, doesn't have to talk. So that part could have been CG, but the parts where she's talking could have very easily been practical.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the technology may have advanced to a point where they've convinced themselves that they don't require as many man hours. I think they've convinced themselves the technology is further than it is. You know what I'm saying? They're like, we don't have to spend all this time anymore.
Yeah.
But actually you do. You know that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because nothing I've seen in the last 10 years is as good as the Hulk was in the first Avengers movie.
Yeah. Nothing.
Yeah.
Not even the Hulks that we've seen since then. And
Right.
I think that there's a lot. I mean, Disney has to really, really decide. I think if this is what they want to do, they've got to buckle down and do it right.
Yeah.
I think the schedule isn't helping. I also think just the inconsistency of the crew, like who's actually doing it, isn't helping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got if it looks good, you got to have the same people just continue to do it. But
Yeah.
you got to turn out as much content as possible, and so that's where we're at. So yeah.
Crimson Jack is a nod to a character from the original comics of this. I read that somewhere.
I read that too.
John
Yeah, it was actually I think they said it was in the original comic that was released in 77, and it's not a character that has anything to do with Jude Law's character. This is just kind of a nod to that. The name is just kind of a nod to that is what I understand.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with that character. It's not supposed to be that character. But I thought that was very interesting too that they did that. So.
The little Easter eggs. The thing is, the things that gave me pause coming in before I watched this show are actually fun Easter eggs. If they took this too seriously or spent too much time on it, it's the kind of things that they have done that ruin shows, like throwing in the Hollow show from the holiday special or having a Teak from the Ewok specials. And I'm like, oh God, there's going to be a Teak character. You're going to be watching this little fast Teak the whole time. But no, it's there. It's an Easter egg for those of us that have suffered through the holiday special and the Ewok films, and it's fun. So that's another.
And what it is, Dan, it's an opportunity for nerds like us to get on here and talk about it, for other people to hear us talk about it, and then they know that those things are on Disney Plus, and people are going to go click on them. That's actually the only reason they're doing this, and so it's kind of a fun little thing for them to kind of bolster the clicks on the older content and kind of stir up a little bit of talk about that as well.
Yeah, you can subscribe to Marvel Unlimited probably. And go online and read the old comic books digitally also. Sell a couple of subscriptions to that, or at least buy the digital comic for a couple dollars.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was in the comic book store this very week, and I started looking for the originals. Of course, I couldn't find them, but I started looking for the originals just to see what was out there. So yeah,
I have the Marvel Unlimited, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I don't
it
want
is.
to read them on a phone.
I'm
use
not
a tablet.
Digital is not really my favorite way to read comic books. I tried that, but I understand why some people it's really a good, efficient way. So,
because you get it on tablet, and like I've been rereading Amazing Spider-Man from issue number 1. Now the investment I would have to make, even in trade paperbacks, to do that.
Oh sure,
would be outrageous.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, so this episode, you want to? I walked us through last week. You want to walk us through what happened? Oh wait, we have somebody here. Boom.
Oh my goodness! Look at this guy! Look at this guy! I wish we would have promoted him. I wish we would have promoted
between
him.
baby shifts, so I've got a good 10-15 to mix it up with y'all.
Rock and roll, man. Rock and
right.
roll. So,
however y'all want to take it.
So
let's just go ahead and give us what you thought about this episode, man. Just go ahead and break it down.
You know, this is interesting. It's interesting to talk about a Star Wars show and not just be filled with rage, just pure rage. It's like I don't really know how to handle it. Now, I assume most people that are watching it are giving it some grace because it's clearly made for kids, which there's nothing wrong with that. Other than I don't know if kids are actually watching it. Like that's the weird part about the viewership.
Yeah,
but I don't hate it. I definitely don't hate it. There's parts I really like.
That's where we're at. I kind of think we need to wait. You know, Disney has fooled us before. They can pull the rug out anytime. True. But to this point, I'm not gouging my eyes out, crying in the fetal position, sitting in the dirt. I'm not doing all that stuff yet. Do
you have the mixed feelings, Bonebridger, like I do? Like when Disney does a good thing, you kind of have mixed feelings about liking it. You feel bad that you like something they did. You're like,
yeah, because it's like why is it good? Did Kathleen Kennedy not care about it? Because that would be the reason why it was good. She ignored it, and people were like, just did a thing. And no Dave Filoni, no Favreau. This was just its own thing. Is that why it's good? Is it just because it's not them?
It's almost like Kathleen Kennedy was just like, go make that stupid kid show, and then they ended up making a good show because she was so hands off.
And that makes sense. Andor's that way. It's the only director that can do whatever he wants is the Andor director because he's big money director, and Kathleen Kennedy couldn't hire him and tell him what to do because he's not, going to do that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm interested to talk about it because if I'm being critical of it, I think it's a few steps from being great. And I think they missed the boat on 2 characters so far. It may change, but I think the main kids, the guy and the girl that you're supposed to like, the main ones are the weakest characters. Everyone else, I think, is solid across the board. All the support, all the costumes are great. All the design of the like aliens are great. I feel like in this one.
Yeah.
But I don't like either of them. And they should be a little likable. Like the elephant guy, or elephant's cool. I'm down with that. And then the Geordie person, I'm cool with that. She's cool too. But I don't know. The 2 main are the only ones I hope come around to get a little more likable. Like he is not likable. So far.
He's a little too naive by half. Like her being smart and him being dumb, that okay, whatever. Yeah, but like
that's
he's
standard
a little
for what
smart.
Yeah.
He's a little too dumb. That's like
and he doesn't make up for it with anything that's like really like he's not like overtly brave or overtly like there's no redeeming quality there where he's not just naive. Like Luke is naive in the beginning, like he wants to be a rebel, but he's also like capable, brave, willing, like I do like the introduction of Jude Law's character. I do think that's better than I thought it would be.
Yeah,
and they didn't kill him in the first 5 minutes of the show, which the top build cast member, you can't just kill him in the first 5 minutes of the show.
So great point.
Yeah. We didn't stretch this out. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say this week, immediately he runs into one of the other pirates who points out that he was the captain that we saw at the top of the first episode. Right. So they didn't try to make a non-mystery like we've been,
which was good.
Way too much.
Yeah.
And I like how they didn't dance around if this was the Acolyte, they would have drug on for about 4 episodes, whether or not he was actually a Jedi. Yeah, or whether or not he was actually a Jedi. Okay. Right. And it's like, no, he's not a Jedi. He's a scoundrel, and he's he's lying to the kids. Okay. They made all that very clear very quickly in this episode, which I appreciated. So yeah.
I thought one of the weakest parts for me, and I don't know, it's like the dynamic on the world with the kids is it's this prosperous, like advanced civilization, which is different. We hadn't really seen that, but then they made it a little relatable, which I didn't like. I wanted more weird stuff. Like it looked like a normal bedroom of a kid with their toys and all their stuff and their iPad. I wanted something that was like, okay, that's a Star Wars fun thing that would be ridiculous. You know, like it felt too familiar in that aspect. Like I was hoping to be a little more. I wanted it to be more silly.
Yeah. This was definitely like when they first go outside and there's the sidewalks, the houses looks like a regular suburb.
It does.
Until it pans out and you see the architecture's slightly different.
Right.
But you could almost squint and think, okay, this is a US suburb.
Right. And that's a big difference between that and Andor. Andor managed to maintain the Star Wars feel in terms of the look of the buildings and like this is unusual living. And I don't know, it's like the creators of this show, the one thing I think they got a little wrong is Star Wars was always limited. Now, this is before J.J. Abrams, so I really shouldn't say this. There was always like certain rules to keep it primitive, but in space. Like it's in space, but communication's hard. Like it's really hard to talk across space. They did all these things that made it a little bit like it's a normal school. Like you're telling me school's still lame? Like you didn't make school cooler at all? Like
no, I got a very I was at the first 2 episodes, it was Charlie Brown. Like they were in there and the droid's teaching them. And I swear I replayed it back to see what the droid was saying because I was just hearing womp 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 womp.
Yeah. But a couple of missed opportunities in there, but that's just nitpicky type stuff, I guess. Nothing major.
And what we were just talking about before you jumped in, Bonebridger, we were talking about how they kind of the first couple episodes, we were kind of giving them major props for kind of going practical on the special effects instead of the CG. This episode, it did feel like they kind of fell back on the CG. When they have the little escape pod thing at the very beginning to get away, that kind of was all CG and weird when they got caught on the line and they had that battle and all that stuff there. And then when we got to Kim was probably the one thing in this episode where we all said, "Oh my goodness, that's bad CG." So, what were your thoughts on that?
It's I feel like this is the one project I can look at though, and where the budget is they're using their budget and it's not stretching to where they want to go, but they're getting close. It's not like the act like where I know there's too much money and they just it's just garbage.
We can actually see it. Limited. We can see what they're using. Yeah, exactly.
Which that's a little more livable because it's like, okay, well, maybe they're building up to something they needed to. Like maybe the payoff part will look smooth. I'm okay with it. I do think this is building up to something exciting. Maybe. Oh yeah. They do understand that it needs to have a big adventure aspect. Like,
I feel like
that's what Star Wars has been missing. You know,
all this Old Republic tie-ins and stuff. This could be leading up to something very cool.
Having in the X-wing and stuff like that was kind of surprising to me. Like I didn't think they'd even do anything like that. It's kind of cool. It just makes me wonder, like, okay, how, are they going to do something really fun? I want to see them have to do some kind of like, I don't know if it's a mission is the right word, but like, Andor has this incredible like heist thing, but it's really slow and it's like over 3-4 episodes. I want a 20-minute segment finale type thing with this show with these characters that's like epic and fun and layered and a little silly. Where it really moves. Like that would be something that would be a fun ending where it's like, because Goonies build slowly to this the pirate thing. They get the treasure, they do all this, but it's that big pirate scene that's like such a big deal, the battle on the ship and stuff.
Now, and you touched on this saying like you don't know if kids are watching it, and I was talking about this last week. Generationally, I'm a Gen X person. I was born in '79. Tim's a little younger. Tim is what you would call a Zennial. He wants to believe he's Gen X. He's not really.
I'm totally not a millennial, Dan. You need to get that out of your vocabulary. Shut your dirty mouth.
Google it. You can Google it. Okay. Tim is. Now, you are a millennial, but we all live in flyover country, right? So that moves us back like a generation. The fact that I'm Gen X, I'm almost a boomer because I live in flyover country.
Yeah, of
course. And you guys are like Gen X millennials because you know. So I don't know if today's kids would understand this show because these are Gen X kids in space. These kids have drank what the intergalactic equivalent of
Right.
hose water. You know, they play
Yeah.
outside. They play with action figures.
Yep.
They have imaginations.
There, you can make this show for this demographic and it work. But what you needed to do was you can't have, and this is my take, but the four main characters shouldn't be from perfect lives with perfect families and perfect like money and all this. You got to have somebody in there that's like you got to have oddballs. You got to have some underdogs, some rough around the edges. They don't, like they want the girl to be like this tough whatever girl, but she's also from an affluent family with like an important mother that's like really important apparently and matters, like who loves her by the way and is like over like it's like okay it's like
these are all like kids of a certain
you wonder if that mom, it's one of those, she's one of those moms, you wonder if she's mad that the girl is missing, or you wonder if she's happy that she's getting attention that the girl is missing, kind of thing. And that's, it's like you just don't know, because this whole world that they've built has been kind of so that we know so little about it.
Right.
But it's so odd. And one of the things these, did you guys notice? It's like they have the meeting with all the parents, and like 3 of the households are single parents. I mean, which I thought was just weird. But I mean,
that was weird. Yeah.
And so anyway, all that kind of stuff is just kind of odd. So once again, maybe a lot of that'll be revealed as we learn more about the planet at Attan.
Like it all flies by because it's very Gen X. It's not just Goonies. And I talked about this is E.T. This is the Explorers. This is upper middle class kids in a suburb having an adventure. They're latchkey kids. Their parents aren't paying attention to what they do during the day, but they do love them. This is exactly what I grew up on. This was the bread and butter of the mid to late 80s kid movies. This is and like that's the thing. I don't know if other generations.
Fat Albert. This is Fat Albert. This is this is all those stories with the kids that just play after school. That's what this is. Yeah.
It's if Star Wars was in a different place, it probably received really well. If you didn't, like if you rewind back in time, you can't fix the movies. They were going to steamroll off into the darkness no matter what. But imagine if it was Mandalorian season 1 and this were the two things that came out. Solid. I mean, you wouldn't have, and the reception, the overall feel. And then what if it was Mandalorian season 2 and just Andor? What if that was the only 4 things that started out for Disney Plus Star Wars? You would have a whole different perception, but every time they do one thing good, they follow it up with something that is just so, like people aren't trying this show because of Acolyte and Boba Fett and Ahsoka and all the stuff and the kid thing. I don't know how they don't even watch Disney Plus. Like it's parents show their kids Bluey, or it's adults watching Disney Plus, which is a crazy like jump. It's not even, Netflix has a lot of teenagers. They get a lot of that like 16 to 24-year-old demographic is huge on Netflix. Disney's just like no one, which is, it's just weird because they made this show for like middle school age type, technically, I guess, middle grade. I don't know how many watch it.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope that it's good. So I hope it would find that audience. But like you said, I don't know if it will.
It's a good point. It is good. So they can leave it on here. And over time, it could do well with stuff. It's not like Willow where you have to remove it because it's so bad that it doesn't help your brand or help anything leaving it on. At least if you have something good, you can just leave it there. And who knows? Maybe someone will find it and they'll really like it.
Yeah. And it isn't dumbed down for kids. Like all that stuff that was made in the 80s for kids, like essentially E.T. is a kid's movie. But nobody says E.T. is just a kid's movie.
Right.
So adults can enjoy it until the kids find it.
Yeah.
If they ever do. So I don't know. The captain, Jude Law. What do we think? Like, he's not a Jedi, but is it a total con? Do we think he's force sensitive? Where do we think?
Ooh, that's a good question. Do you guys know the time frame in this when it was set?
This is after Return of the Jedi. So this is the very
Okay.
beginnings of the New Republic.
Okay. That's interesting. I wonder what his deal is.
I mean, he could have been a youngling, or maybe a young Padawan that survived the purge.
I think I don't think that would be something that's a can of worms that they would want to open up. I think we got a guy that's just working these kids for what he thinks is going to be a big payday. That's what I think. And he appears to be force sensitive, but the kids were talking about it. Hey, there are ways to make things look like they float. And so who knows? We'll just have to see. But as they were escaping, wasn't he using the force for things there too? Or did I catch a couple things that he was moving? And
the ship,
so
he turned off the light. He turned off.
Yeah, see that. Yeah, so there's more than just floating the key. So it's hard to kind of nail it down to just that. But yeah,
and he's not going to be evil. They're not going to go that route where he's like full on Sith type situation.
Yeah. I'm getting Han Solo vibes, right?
Yeah. He's a scoundrel. Yeah, that's it. I mean,
He's out for like he might have the heart of gold. He might have the dramatic turnaround. Jonathan, that's Disney's MO the past couple of years. One good project. We got Jonathan from Comic Book Cinema. Yeah.
There's no quality control at all.
But it doesn't matter. Hey, here's the thing, people. It doesn't matter if it's the good project or the bad project. If Jonathan May sees it, immediately after he sees it, he will say it's amazing. So that's guaranteed 1,000%. Okay. It'll be the best thing that's ever come out for that franchise right away.
Positive guy.
I feel like
right.
We shit on it though. It's the things that they're not trying to quality control that have quality. Let's see. So maybe Jonathan says maybe the cat was force sensitive Jedi that left training as a child. So yeah, he's speculating. Yeah, and we did figure out that if you watched Clone Wars, even though the Jedis, like if you've seen the Acolyte, they travel the galaxy stealing babies because force sensitive people are dangerous and they have to be captured as babies. But then if you get half trained and decide screw this, I don't want to be a Jedi like Ahsoka. They let you just walk, with
your lightsaber.
You're no longer dangerous.
They let you take your lightsabers, your two cool white lightsabers, and just walk away.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, the untrained babies, super dangerous.
Yeah,
but
the dangerously trained one's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. That's cool. The one who has rejected your path and your philosophy outright.
Guys, that's all I got time for. But
brother, we appreciate it, man.
Yeah, we really appreciate you dropping in, man.
Yeah, how many episodes are in this season?
I think is it 8?
Is it 8?
Okay.
I think it's 8. So,
I'm interested to see. That's a solid 3. I'll give it a solid. I mean, yeah.
I mean, this has got interesting places to go. This mystery.
It does.
Yeah.
And I hope the characters become the even more fun once they start getting in the adventure. Like eventually you got to get past the we're scared we're on an adventure. Embrace it. Be a Goonie. Embrace it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Good luck.
They have room to improve.
Yeah.
For sure. Y'all live it
definitely.
up. Enjoy.
Hey,
thank you.
See you, Bone. Take care, man. Appreciate it.
See you. Take care of that kid. Oh, Bonebridger, everybody. So, this is. And Bonebridger hasn't liked much of what Disney has put out for a long time, and we haven't either. Mm-hmm. So this is actually again, like he said, if they had just done this and Mandalorian and it is a shame that this is following on the tails of so much awful because
it is.
You just don't know if it's going to find its audience.
So let me do a quick episode recap here. So we start out with the droids telling the parents, the droids that run the planet or the school or something, telling the parents that these kids have taken off and gone outside the barrier of Attan. Okay. They don't know where they're at. They don't know all that kind of stuff. And so everybody's kind of worried about their kids, obviously, but the droids seem to be more worried about the fact that somebody's outside the barrier. Then where we pick up is in the pirate port that they were at, where they were they were jailed. They were they had escaped because Jude Law got the key at the end of the last episode.
Yep.
And they got the key. They got out. They said, "Hey, why didn't you get out this whole time?" He said, "Well, I didn't have a ship. You said you had a ship, so that's why we're out." So he got them out, and they go back to the ship. They make it all the way back to the ship unseen, and then Fern says, "We've got to have SM-33. He's the one that is responsible for us being alive still. You got to go back and get SM-33." And he says, "We're not going back for a droid." She says, "Well, then I'm going to go do it." She was kind of like holding the ship captive, I guess. And then so he says, okay, so he goes back to get SM-33, brings SM-33 back to the ship. And in the midst of that whole thing, he is seen by a guy that recognized him. And basically, the whole port starts chasing him on the way back. He gets tied up in the fuel lines and all this kind of stuff. It becomes this weird battle of him getting back to the ship. He gets on the ship and they take off. But basically, so they're going to have these pirates after them, as well as whoever else is interested in possibly getting this treasure that they're going to. So that's kind of where they go from there. As they're flying, SM-33 figures out very quickly that he is not a Jedi. Okay, the kids start deliberating amongst themselves. Is he a Jedi? Is he not a Jedi? They're sleeping. Some of them are sleeping. Some of them are not. And then basically what ends up happening is he says that he can take them somewhere where he has a friend that will be able to decode where their home planet is, and he can help get them home. So they arrive at this place where they're going to meet his friend, which is Kim. And Kim appears to be, as we said before, part owl, part badger, part cyborg, part whatever. And she wears clothes, which is, all of that is odd, but that's what it is. And Kim is very good at coding stuff. Before they arrive, Kim has already told the New Republic that they are there, because she knows that Jude Law's character, who is nicknamed Crimson Jack, apparently, that he is wanted by the New Republic. And so she informs them that they're coming. And then as they're there, she starts kind of stalling. He explains that they need to get home and all this kind of stuff. And then when he mentions it's at Attan, she realizes what's going on. He's trying to take these kids so that he can just get the treasure at Attan. And she tells the kids that, and all this kind of stuff. And basically, the coordinates do pop up. He grabs them, and they run out of there in order to try to get home and get to Attan. They are chased by X-Wings, and for some reason, he convinces these kids to shoot at X-Wings. They probably just don't know what X-Wings are, I guess, which is weird because they know what Jedi are. So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff they know and don't know, so it just kind of depends. But
their knowledge base is very Old Republic.
Yeah, so very, very Old Republic is kind of where it seems to be. So anyway, so yeah, and that's did I miss anything in there, Dan, or is that pretty much about it? So,
no, that pretty much sums up where we are and what we established. I think that the one scene that like just establishes all kinds of things, takes care of a lot of stuff, is when the kids insist that he goes back for SM-33.
Yeah,
because you're not going to go to all the trouble of creating this awesome John Silver,
and then just leave him there,
for your pirate show, and then just have him get killed in the second episode.
You
need that's probably one of the best characters in the show. Is SM-33. I mean, this is what sells it as a pirate shirt. This is definitely John Silver. This is a Treasure Island riff. And he's very fun. Also, we established quite a few things here. We established very clearly, without a doubt, that he is the captain we saw at the beginning of the show. We established how much time has passed from that first sequence of the show, because that first sequence of the show, there's a pirate raid. They only get one credit. And then we go to the kids on their planet. By the time they find him in that jail cell, we have no idea how long he's been in that jail cell. Has it been years, decades, months, days? Well, we find out it hasn't been very long, because when he goes back, he talks to that pirate. We find out that he is awaiting trial. So it hasn't been very long. So it establishes that. It gets SM-33 back. It establishes he's a pirate captain. And it also establishes that he is not working in conjunction with the other pirates, which you thought, like, you could have thought maybe that's what was happening, that they planted him in the prison before they sent them down to flush out where Attan is, that like they were all working in cahoots. But you very clearly established that that's not going on. So like a lot of legwork gets done in this one very short scene.
Yeah.
That was, and you do know that he's out for the money, because he says, I finally had the big score lined up.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, and I'm still not totally convinced that he's not force sensitive, or at least have some.
No, he's a force wielder. I mean, I believe he's a force wielder. It just is exactly what level of force wielder, because you don't necessarily have to be a Jedi to be force sensitive. You don't necessarily have to be a Jedi or be trained to be able to use it. And then we see a lot of different, especially in recent Disney projects, we've seen a lot of people who have been able to utilize the Force in different ways through different crafts. We've seen a lot of witchcraft, a lot of other things like that. So it's really hard to know what angle they're going to take with this. But there is like zero doubt in my mind that before the end of this show he'll pick up a lightsaber. There's zero doubt in my mind. Okay, so like it kind of feels like it's an inevitability at some point, but it's kind of funny because he's trying to work these kids saying that he's a Jedi, and then he's walking around with a blaster, you know what I mean, which should have been like the big key, because Jedi don't use blasters. So that was kind of a thing, but I really do like the show so far. I think that it's good. There are a few things that we can get into, but for the most part, I'm not weeping uncontrollably about it.
Yeah, I think that his attitude towards SM-33 actually kind of adds to the idea that maybe he's a Jedi.
Yeah,
because people don't like remember this, like a lot of Star Wars nerds do, but it's kind of been left to the wayside in the Disney era. But the Jedi were always very dismissive and distrustful of droids. Like the only Jedi we ever see that really cares for droids in any way is Anakin.
Oh, Anakin. Yeah.
Anakin likes his droids, you know. He created C-3PO. He cares about him. He cares about R2-D2. But like Obi-Wan hates droids. Like he doesn't trust them. He doesn't like dealing with them. He doesn't.
Well, it's the first thing that Luke says to him. He goes, "This is your droid," and he goes, "I don't remember owning a droid." Remember, that's
it's any kind. Yeah, they just don't. They're almost like Mandalorians in that way. Like those two sects, they just really don't trust droids. They don't put trust in it. So that led me to believe that maybe he is connected to the Jedi in some way. And yes, I mean, so far this show, like I'm really enjoying it. And that's the thing. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like generationally, I don't know if it's going to find the young audience, because I feel like it's made for me when I was 9 is who this is made for. And 9-year-olds today don't that I had when I was.
Yeah, I mean, every kid when we were kids, Dan, every kid would run out to the swing set and run to the top of the slide and pretend they were on a pirate ship. I mean, this is made for kids that did what we do. And they would use the steering wheel and pretend they're, I mean, that every kid, I had a pirate birthday party when I was like 6 years old. You know what I mean? Like I loved pirate stuff. Pirate stuff is one of those things that just reaches out and grabs a certain generation. And I feel like our generation really was big with it. And it wasn't just because of the Goonies. There was a lot of stuff that was pumped up when we were kids. Peter Pan was really pumped up when we were kids. And, there's a lot of stuff, at Disney World, they always had the Pirates of the Caribbean. And so the imagination was always there. And if you insert that into the Star Wars realm, it's always going to be something that's going to be interesting. So I feel like that I'm with you. It feels like something that just kind of is the perfect blend and the perfect marriage for a certain sect of the kids that kind of do that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of how I feel like this is going to find its audience somewhere.
Yeah, because I mean, this kid plays with action figures.
Yeah.
The most high-tech thing you've seen him play with was at school. The desk appears to be an Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah.
In the episode, and he drew a Jedi with it.
And the speeder, he had that speeder bike, right?
Yeah,
and that was probably the next most high-tech thing.
Which is like a moped, like that's like having
for him, it's like a moped. Yeah,
or a moped. Like this is things that kids used to do. Like these kids are not playing video games. You know, these are not video. You know, so I don't know. I don't know if these generations can relate. I hope they can. I hope there's still kids that play outside and imagine things and have mopeds and stuff. I don't know. You know, I don't know if those kids exist. But this show, we like it so far. Disney, I don't know. Maybe they've turned a corner. Moana 2 is doing big business. Skeleton Crew is actually good.
Inside Out 2, I mean, you know, just came out.
Inside Out 2 was good. They let Deadpool and Wolverine come out.
Yeah.
And it was good. So they're like on a streak of like, but
they're making a lot of money doing really good. So yeah.
And a lot of these things like Skeleton Crew, things like Deadpool and Wolverine, they can't really claim all the credit.
They can't.
You know, like Skeleton Crew, I could tell Kathleen Kennedy didn't care, so she let them actually make a good show.
Yeah,
if she had her fingers in it, she would have ruined
I'll be in my office, guys. You know, just you know.
And then Deadpool and Wolverine, Ryan had to fight them tooth and nail to get to make the movie he wanted in a good
way.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, but Moana 2, Inside Out 2. Now, Inside Out 2 is Pixar, so I don't know how much Pixar has to fight Disney to get their things the way they want them to be. And we did read articles that they had a few moves that they were going to make that would have pushed agenda that they just decided, well, what, let's not do this. But then Moana 2, though, that is Disney. That is Disney. Like that's something that they and from all accounts, it's good and it's doing big business. So some of these other things we can discount as like it came out under Disney, but Disney's not learning. But maybe Disney is turning a corner. I don't know. But anyway, as far as Skeleton Crew is, this is what they should have been doing the whole time. We're just gonna keep saying that.
Yeah. Removed from the rest of the Star Wars universe. Make your own story, original characters. You know, nothing that you're screwing up as far as the Star Wars universe so far. I mean, this is what they need to be doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's for kids, but not just for kids. You know, it's interesting enough to keep old fans watching it, but young enough slanted that you could hopefully get a new generation of Star Wars fans. Which, again, they should have been doing this from the beginning instead of losing and infuriating your first generation of fans, because the new generation of fans is going to come from having their parents show them this stuff. Like, hey, you need to watch Star Wars and come watch Star Wars with me. This would be doing so much better if they had not spent so much time burning their old fan base.
Yeah.
Because all these parents and grandparents that would have been showing their kids this show are just still mad that they watched The Acolyte. So,
but not just The Acolyte, right? They're mad with what happened with Boba Fett and with what happened with Obi-Wan and with what happened with season 3 of The Mandalorian and
Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. And there's just been so much, man, where it just feels like we got to a point where everything that was going to be introduced was going to be cheap. It was going to be poorly done. It was going to be universe destroying. It was going to tear down things that we thought we knew for decades. That's what it felt like. It felt like this is what Star Wars is going to be from now on. And this just proved you don't have to do that. I think that's the interesting thing. So far, now it's early. It's only episode 3 out of 8, but so far they have not done any of that in this. They have just tried to make an interesting story. That's what you should have done from the very beginning. Start with a story inserted into the Star Wars universe, and that's interesting enough for most people.
Yeah.
You don't have to tie in characters and worlds and change things. You don't have to do that, man.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like the thing that Disney has done with every Star Wars project so far, every single thing, they have felt the need to change what the Force does in every project. Show us something that we've never seen before with the Force. It's almost like it was a prerequisite for Kathleen Kennedy. Well, what are you going to show me from the Force in this project that we've never seen before? They haven't done that so far. And that's amazing because we don't care. We know what the Force is. We know what the Force is capable of. We don't need to see a new thing that the Force can do. We don't need to see that. You don't need to show me Force projection. You don't need to show me the thread and the power of many. You don't need to show me, that Force can read minds and do all. You don't need to show me all that. Okay, just give me an interesting and compelling story. Put it in space, and I'll love it because I'm a nerd. That's what we do. So, anyway, so yeah.
So, I think that pretty much covers Skeleton Crew for this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I hope they keep going on this track, and we have a fun show for once. Did you have anything else in the world of nerd that we needed? Any pressing issues that we needed to hit on?
No, we didn't. But Dan just brought something up to me in text this week, and I want everybody who might know anything about it to go ahead and bring it up. There is a masterpiece for Christmas that nobody watches anymore. Okay. And it is the original 1986 brilliant masterpiece starring the one and only Drew Barrymore and Keanu Reeves, Babes in Toyland. Okay. Dan sent me a message and said, "Have you seen this stupid movie?" And I'm like, "Of course. I used to have the VHS. To this day, it's the reason that I can spell the word Cincinnati. It's an amazing movie. Go ahead and check it out if you haven't. You will have fun." Okay. The end.
Send all of your angry comments and emails directly.
It's a terrible movie. Okay, it's a terrible movie, but you will laugh the whole time. Okay, so yes,
yeah. All right. So that being said, it's the holiday season. If you don't catch us next week, we'll be here next week. But if we don't see you again before then, Merry Christmas, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Like, share, and subscribe.